Ladies, gentlemen, and Haradrim of all ages, Season 11 is one of the biggest shifts in Diablo 4 since its initial release, and arguably the biggest set of changes to the game's mechanics that we have had, outside of the Vessel of Hated expansion, of course, adding a whole load, and rather than adding, this is completely reconfiguring the game in a way that is going to just change the feeling of the endgame loop as a whole. That said, with all of this stuff going on, and of course the regular addition of new seasonal powers and mechanics, and other new content as part of Season 11, which is releasing tomorrow, let's break down everything new there is to know about, starting with the permanent game additions and changes, and then diving into the Season 11 specific stuff afterwards. Beginning then, let's start with some larger equipment manipulation changes. Let's talk about tempering and masterworking, because both of these systems have changed pretty dramatically and will affect the flow of the entire game moving forwards. For tempering, you can now choose the exact affix that you want to temper onto gear instead of having to randomly roll which one from a group on a recipe, with the main randomness now coming from the effectiveness of the roll itself. So you will always get the affix that you want, just the power of it is what is random. But this does also come with the potential to roll a greater affix version of your tempered affix. I imagine quite a low chance, but this means we have the ability to get greater affix level power on things that could never roll as greater affixes previously. So that is quite neat to have a sort of chase goal for tempering now that the rest of the RNG has been made less of a factor. And of course, in combination with this, it's worth mentioning, you can now use the Scroll of Restoration to refill the tempering charges of an item infinitely. There's not a limited amount of times you can do that per item anymore. Then for masterworking, this one has arguably changed even more, to the point that instead of thinking of it as the old system and talking about how it's changed from that, I'll instead just explain how it works flat out as if it was totally new. When you masterwork an item, you increase its quality a random number of stages between 2 and 5. 25 quality is the maximum amount you can upgrade to, and for each level of quality, all affixes on that item will increase in effectiveness by 1%. So 25 quality is a 25% increase on all of the affixes. When you hit maximum quality, you also get to do what is called a capstone upgrade. This will pick one of the affixes on the item, including possibly the tempered affix, and increase its value by 50%. And this can stack with something that is already a greater affix, so it can make it even greater. You can also reroll which stat gets this capstone bonus once you hit it, so you can really try to perfect an item to put as much power into that one affix as possible if you want to, and you don't have to restart the entire masterworking journey to do so. Past that, they have completely reworked defensive stats as a concept in the game. Instead of a raw armor stat on the player screen, you will have the toughness stat. This is a sort of estimated representation of your effective health. Armor as a stat now affects all damage taken, not only physical, and there is now a physical damage resistance stat as well to line up with the various elemental damage resistances. Your toughness stat is an amalgamation of all of your various resistances combined with your armor and your maximum life total. When you hover over your toughness, it will essentially show you how much effective health you have versus each type of damage based on those stats, which, while it might be a bit confusing at first glance, is definitely a much simpler way to understand where the holes are in your defense and your survivability so that you can fix them. It's also worth noting that torment tiers no longer have resistances or armor penalties on them either. It just scales appropriately with your actual stats. They've changed healing in the way that it works in the game too. Based potion capacity is now 4, and on top of potions dropping from monsters, you will automatically regenerate 1 potion every 30 seconds. As well, potions are fully instant when you use them, and no longer require upgrading as you level. They just will always be 35% of your maximum life delivered instantly, whatever that number is. Life on hit as a stat has been improved, also life regeneration as a stat, life on kill, and healing percent increases too, just to try and make those stats somewhat more relevant now, especially with the potion changes. Another side of that is changes to the fortify mechanic. Now, fortify, instead of being a damage reduction source, works instead as a sort of emergency heal. When you take damage, if you have fortify, it will rapidly heal you based on the fortify amount that you have. Then there is also a change to monster behavior and action choices. They have made a pass over every monster in the game in an attempt to give them more of a personal identity, make them less samey, less repetitive, but also less predictable, so that combat feels a little bit more interesting and engaging. They've also added like 20 new affixes, even more than that, into the pool that can spawn on base enemies or on elites, and now elite enemies will spawn with minions that share some of their affixes as well. Past that, the champion enemy type is now no longer quite the same, and now applies to like a group of monsters or a pack of enemies, which are referred to now as a champion pack. Then we have a couple of things that ride the middle ground between seasonal and eternal, the first of which is the tower activity and leaderboard system attached to it. This is a new activity that will not be available at the launch of the season. Instead, it is expected to be added in with the mid-season patch, which is planned for mid-January, so you know when it's planned to happen. But this is basically a pit-adjacent activity that will have a leaderboard tied to it. It will be releasing in a beta stage when it comes out to begin with. It will be unlocked using season ranks, which in theory means that it will be season exclusive for now, but once it is out of beta, which we expect to happen eventually in like season 12, the tower should also be added to the Eternal Realm too then, though I don't know if they'll have leaderboards there too, or just keep the leaderboards separate to being a season-specific thing. That said, the tower is essentially multiple floors to progress through with randomized tile sets and monsters inside. You progress the bar of it by killing enemies and collecting orbs when they drop, with bigger monsters being worth more progress. There are pylons that will appear as you move through the tower that give you bonus power for a short duration, and then eventually when the progress bar is full, you will spawn a boss and have to defeat that to end your run. Essentially, it is like a variation of the pit with slightly different goals, slightly different balancing, and created from the ground up to try and be like a fair activity to work into a leaderboard system. And to note that the leaderboards are planned to be split into solo rankings for each individual class, and then a ranking for each possible party size above that with a bit less specificity. And the final thing that is sort of riding the middle ground between eternal and seasonal updates is the removing or changing of the renown system and replacing it with season ranks, which are of course a seasonal mechanic. So the Eternal Realm still does have renown, but losing benefits of things like bonus potion charges as that is just gone now. Everyone has to deal with 4 base potions, but for the seasonal realm specifically, the renown system is completely gone. It does not affect seasonal characters anymore. All of the benefits that used to be associated with that are gone as well, including the bonus skill points and paragon points that we all started with at the beginning of a season. Season ranking is essentially the replacement for the season journey system, and now as you progress the season ranking objectives, you'll be given the paragon points and skill points that we used to get from renown, as well as things like cosmetics and smoldering ashes like usual. Unlike the old season journey, part of these seasonal rank ups require completing capstone dungeons, like the ones that used to unlock torment tiers way back when, and while some of them are familiar, some were designed fresh for this new concept as well. So yes, this is essentially taking power that we already all had guaranteed and moving it around to be something that we have to earn each season. So instead of starting the season with a big jump of power, we have to start pretty fresh and earn it as we go, and they are doing that in an attempt to have more engaging systems. I have some early opinions about this swap, but I think that they honestly don't matter much until we've all gotten to properly play a season with the system in place to see if that actually is how it's going to be and see how it feels in action. Before we get into seasonal mechanics then, I do want to stop and touch on the new uniques for each class too, because these will also be added to the Eternal Realm. Barbarian gets Chain Scourged Mail, pants based around brawling skills, where if you use a damaging brawling skill, it will get disabled, and brawling skills have their damage increased per disabled skill. Once all brawling skills on your bar have been disabled, they refresh and reset cooldowns and then become usable again. For Druid, you get Comsin Step Walkers, boots that give you maximum movement speed and the Unhindered buff for a short duration after dealing enough hits with nature magic skills, and when they are active, you immobilize any enemy that you walk through as well. Necromancer gets Grave Bloom, a mace that turns your one big golem into 3 smaller golems that deal overall more damage than the one of them would, but also they attack faster, they respawn faster, and the item also has ranks of the Golem Mastery skill, which is a pretty big deal for scaling golem damage properly. This unique in particular seems the most likely to become a big, powerful build moving forward as a result, or at least the one most likely to be the thing that creates a build. Rogue gets Death's Pavane, pants that affect Dance of Knives, making enemies hit by the skill drop knives that you can pick up. Picking up a knife gives you an extra charge of Dance of Knives, as well as increasing the Dance of Knives damage, stacking up to 3 times. Then the just general affixes on the item are also quite solid too. I don't expect Dance of Knives to be like pit pushing meta from this, but this will make its speed farming builds even more potent of course. Then we've got Sorcerer with Orsavane, another mace unique. This one giving you increased damage for each defensive skill not slotted onto your action bar, as well as gaining the enchantment effect of each one of them for free, and then some pretty solid affixes on the item itself too. Finally, Spiritborn gets Path of the Emissary, which are boots that auto-cast your core skill associated with the primary Spirit Hall choice you have taken after you move a set distance. 4 meters for the top roll, which definitely has some interesting potential, but we'll have to see what people can make of it for sure. But if nothing else, they are unique unique boots that can offer a massive core skill damage increase, so they will definitely fit in somewhere for sure. Past that, there's a bunch of other class and item changes as well. It's a big season of changes and differences. I won't cover all of the stuff here, but I recommend checking out the patch notes yourself if you want to see the class changes in detail. Moving on then, let's finally get into the season specific stuff. The first thing to talk about is the lesser evils and their boss invasion mechanic. Essentially in season 11, various major endgame activities have been taken over by lesser evil bosses that will augment how they function, change enemy types within them, or add mechanics to those activities too. Then you'll be able to fight the boss related to that activity. For Helltides, as an example, Duriel will be the associated boss, so there will be a bunch more maggots around during Helltide. When your threat meter fills up during Helltide, it will spawn Pangs of Duriel instead of Hellborn, and when you summon the Blood Maiden during Helltide, it will instead spawn Duriel. For Pit, the lesser evil for this one is Belial. Green eyes will spawn while you're playing through Pit, and if you destroy enough of the green eyes, and the final boss of that Pit run will become Belial himself. Then Undercity has been taken over by Andariel. She will empower certain monsters during the run to make it harder, and she can show up as the end boss of that activity, which is guaranteed to happen if you use one of the new Andariel-based tributes when you enter, which force her to be the boss and can drop uniques from her specific loot pool depending on which tribute that you use. Then the sort of final section of this is that each of those bosses, when fought in that way, will drop materials that you can use to summon Azmodan, who is a new world boss fight this season that you actively need to spawn into the world with materials. He will have some of the powers from the other lesser evils when you fight him as well because of this. These bosses then are directly tied to the Divine Gifts system, which is our more standard seasonal perk power-up mechanic. You get this menu with 8 slots that you can fill up. There are 8 total power options, so you can use all of them or choose not to if you don't want to. The powers unlock as you defeat the lesser evil bosses in their invasion activities for the first time. Each Divine Gift has 3 sort of parts to it. The reward part of a Divine Gift is always active no matter what if you have it slotted somewhere. The Purified part only applies to a power place in the inner ring, the Purified slots, so only one of the 2 powers per boss can be treated as purified and gain that bonus. The third component is the Corrupted modifier, which takes effect if it is placed in one of the outer gift slots. So inner gift slot activates reward and purified, outer activates reward and corrupted, and you can only activate one of each per boss as each of these sections is specific to those bosses. The outer slots are active by default, you get them when you first load into the season, but the inner slots are unlocked through reputation progress, which is gained by doing the lesser evil invasion related activities as well. You can level up the divine gifts as well to increase their effects by continuing to do the lesser evil invasion related activities. That said, as there are only 8 of these, we'll just go through each one nice and easy so you understand why you would want each one, why the corrupted slots even matter, and why you might not want to have all of your slots filled. Essence of Pain from Duriel drops socketables from Pangs of Duriel during Helltide as the reward, doubled when in Purified slot. The Purified gift effect is Maximum Barrier after becoming injured once per 20 seconds, and the Corrupted gift makes Pangs of Duriel ambush more frequently during Helltide and gives them the ability to break your barrier or fortify. If you want the Purified effect, you'd put it in the Purified slot. Otherwise, you could just leave it entirely unequipped, or if you are willing to put up with the Corrupted effect in order to receive the reward effect, that is what the Corrupted slots are for. It lets you add the extra challenge in exchange for also getting the bonus rewards. Essence of Squalor, which is also from Duriel. Base reward is experience globes dropped during Helltide. Purified effect is healing potion refilled once per 20 seconds. And Corrupted effect is maggot spawn from falling meteors and their attacks consume potions. Essence of Lies is from Belial. Base reward gives you a chance for bonus glyph upgrades from Pit. Purified effect fortifies 1% per second. And Corrupted effect makes Belial eyes during the Pit have a really nasty attack to use against you. Essence of Shadows, also from Belial. Reward effect on this one is increased gold from the Pit. Purified effect is unstoppable when you are CC'd once per 12 seconds. Corrupted effect is empowered apparitions during the Pit activity. Essence of Sin is from Azmodan. Reward gives you activity keys from world boss kills, and this extends to being from things all across Sanctuary once you level it up as well. Purified effect is straight up 20% bonus armor, which could be quite a big deal in the new defensive stat system, and Corrupted makes you just permanently vulnerable while you're fighting world bosses. Essence of Hellfire, also from Azmodan. The reward effect from this gives you lair boss keys from world bosses specifically, and leveling it up makes these drop from anywhere in the game as a whole. Purified effect is 10% chance to stun from any direct damage you deal. Corrupted effect is meteors raining down upon you during world bosses, though I do have to wonder how that would work if enough players had it active at the same time. Then Essence of Anguish is from Andariel. It has the reward effect of offering obols from attunement gain in Undercity, and Treasure Goblin spawns at level 5 as well. Purified effect is raw movement speed increase, and Corrupted effect adds bonus enemies through the Undercity itself with unique attacks and a heavy slowing debuff effect. Then the final one is Essence of Screams. Reward effect is salvage materials from attunement gain in Undercity and Treasure Goblin spawns on the leveled version as well. Purified effect is 20% increased all resistance, which is probably quite good in the new defensive systems, and Corrupted effect is a boost to one of the Undercity enemies that can pull you in and create maximum life damage per second ground pools as well. Then finally we have the Sanctification system. This is being viewed as like the final stage of upgrading an item after everything else is done, to the point that you literally cannot modify an item further after you have sanctified it. When you do this, it applies one quite random effect to the item. The options are adding a random bonus legendary effect on top of the existing item, whatever it originally does, improving an affix to being a greater affix on the item, adding a new affix from a specific Sanctification affix pool, adding a random amount of bonus quality past the cap, up to 25, so an extra 5 to 25% bonus effectiveness of all affixes that are already on the item, including making greater affixes more potent too. Or the final one is replacing an affix with a Sanctification affix too, though that one specifically has been changed since the PTR so that it never happens to ancestral uniques or mythic uniques, as it was capable of totally bricking those items by doing that, so they got rid of that because they never want the system to feel like it's a punishment, just varying levels of reward. As far as how to engage with Sanctification as a system, there is a chance to be offered the ability to sanctify an item when you defeat the lesser evils in their activity invasion, even pre-torment, so during your initial progress running through stuff leveling up, and you honestly might as well do that when it happens. If you don't do it when it pops up, you lose the opportunity, so you might as well try and make a piece of your leveling gear absolutely cracked. Once you reach torment though, you will start to get items called Heavenly Sigils. These are a specific currency that lets you sanctify an ancestral piece of equipment at will, rather than the other way, which is very random, time limited, and doesn't work for ancestrals to begin with. That pretty much does it then, everyone. That's the quickest rundown that I could reasonably give for the massive list of changes coming to the game as a whole with the release of Season 11, as well as the actual seasonal specific bits of it all too. It's a big season of changes. There were some pretty big gripes that people had from playing the PTR, but we'll see how it all feels to play a proper season with these changes, with the further changes they've made, and hopefully the game has changed for the better. I hope you've all enjoyed this recap then, and I wish you the best of luck on your character start when the season begins. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.